And we are back. We are ready for our second panel today, and we're going to be talking about leadership development. And we have two ladies here, two experts in the field, talking about leadership development. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and give a brief background, because we could be here all day, all weekend with both of them. But just introduce yourselves and give us a brief bio.
Okay. My name is DWALAH Fisher. I am currently the.
She's doctor though.
I am currently the Assistant Athletic Director and Senior Woman Administrator for Texas Southern University. I also serve as the Deputy Title IX Coordinator for Athletics. And that's on that academic side. I serve as a full professor in health kinesiology and sports studies department.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is MERRITT. I serve as the Director of Leadership Development at the NCAA. My department is one that is responsible for the education and training of the membership. We do everything in service to the student athlete. We serve them in two ways. One is through programs and services that have a direct touch. The second is through the education and development of those who coach, teach, and lead them. I have been in the role, been in the department since 2016 and been in the role of director since 2018.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. So we'll start off. Tell me or tell us about what leadership means to you and how it has impacted you professionally and personally, and led you into your present role.
I had to get Doc to give me go ahead to talk first. So it's interesting when we talk about leadership development. I started my career in athletics as a secretary. I worked at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I had a friend who was employed there first, and she knew my love of sports. I'm not a student athlete, not gifted and coordinated enough to be one. But I've always been a professional spectator, as I tell people. And so I had a friend who was like, hey, there's a job in athletics, think you would love it. And so I applied for it, received the job, and immediately knew that this was where I wanted to be. I loved the student athletes. I loved being there every day to interact with them. I had a tremendous amount of respect for them and what they had to go through and do every single day to be successful. How they had to balance athletics and academics and their personal life to be just who they were at the time, and wanted to do everything that I could to help them. And through having a wonderful mentor who happened to be my boss, who said, basically, it's time for you to level up. You can do more here. I ended up going back to school and finishing my bachelor's, going straight into my MBA, and was then promoted into assistant athletic director. And at the time, the director of athletics called me into his office shortly after that. And he was like, we really need to have a student athlete development program here. And I want you to create it. And I was like, okay. He was like, I don't know what to tell you, but maybe go online and see if you can find something. Maybe there's some sort of organization that, can help with this. And that's how I found NCAA Leadership Development. I literally went back to my office, did a search on Google, found leadership development, found out that they were having an education and training symposium that Thursday. This was like that Monday. Called down to Indianapolis, asked if I could come, and they said, if you can get here, we have a spot for you. And so I literally packed my stuff up, drove down to Indianapolis, and I was like, this is the Mecca. This is it. To be in a room with 300 other administrators from all over the country, and everyone's passion and purpose was to create programs and services to serve the student athletes. I was like, what else is there to do? In athletics, they can have all of the business office stuff, and I don't want any of that. And so I worked and built the program, stayed in contact with leadership development. I'm a product of the department that I work for. I've been through practically every program that we have. And so when 2016 rolled around, and I was presented with an opportunity to work there, I said, it's time for me to go. I get the opportunity to work in a department that I've long respected. And so for me, that was a full circle moment, to start in a space of being a learner. I've always been a learner. I've always enjoyed learning. I have a natural curiosity about me and my personality, to work in an athletic department where I was able to help student athletes to be able to see how the skills that they have that make them such great student athletes can transfer over into their lives after college. That was a passion and purpose for me. It still is. And then to now be in the department that helps to chart the course and set the direction of a lot of the work that's done on behalf of the membership. It's just truly a dream come true for me. And so leadership development is the pathway. It takes all of the things that we learn along the way, takes all of the things that the student athletes learn along the way about being coachable, about being a good teammate, about being, how do they take those skills and then translate them into a 30-second elevator speech that'll help them get the job. It's the pathway to opportunity. It's the pathway to prosperity for them. And so I think that, and not just them, the people who work to serve them, it's their pathway as well. So I'm just a firm believer that if you're not learning, what are you doing? You laying in the bed or you left this earth. Like, you should always be trying to learn and get better. And what better way for me than working in a department where that's what we do every single day. So leadership development to me is the essence of what we want our student athletes to be, is to be those leaders who continue to develop throughout their lives, and that it doesn't just end when they walk out the door.
Well, my story is just a little bit different, whereas I started in sports first. And I think my leadership development for me is really about growth. I started as that student athlete here at Texas Southern University. And as I was talking to Paula yesterday, she was like, you're a lifer. And I never, that term I had not had ever used, but I am. I shared with her in August will mark my 34th year here at the institution. And I absolutely love it. I tell people oftentimes, I live here. I live here. Some of you are passing by. Some of you are squatting. And some of you, you don't want to be here, but I live here. There is nothing that you can tell me that is bad about my institution. And I'm going to give you 10 great things about it. Because if it wasn't for those bad things, we wouldn't be able to change. We wouldn't be able to turn those into good things. And all of these are about experiences. And I think that's what leadership development is about. It's about growth. From being a student athlete here, I played volleyball and basketball. I have one of my mentors in the room, so that has groomed me. And he taught me life. He said, there's life after sports. And I was like, no, it's not. Wasn't any life after sports when I was 18. I just wanted to play volleyball and basketball. And then after I finished playing volleyball and basketball, I was 22 years old, sitting in probably this room. It looked like this then, but sitting in this room, and my head volleyball coach retired suddenly for some health challenges. And because I had been around the program at 22, I became a head volleyball coach of a Division I program. Had no clue what to do, but I had mentors that talked to me. Then I did that for 17 years. So my mentors, the growth, the grooming, the understanding of Mr. Stan spoke about the culture, understanding the culture of my institution. I think those were great things that helped me. Growing in the position, growing overall as a person. After I decided I didn't want to coach anymore, I had 2 young sons, and they played football. So that's when that work-life balance thing comes in. With volleyball, I traveled with football, so I had seen 5 football games, and he was now going to the 9th grade. So it was a choice for me, and it really wasn't a hard one to make. I wanted to be team mom, booster club mom, and the one that packed the lunches. So I didn't want to miss any more games. So I stepped down as being a volleyball coach, and even before I could step down, the then AD told me, "Hey, I need you in administration." Like, wow. You know, so I believe that those things, something that they saw in me during that time, that I've never had to interview for a job because they've always come to me. These are the things that what I try to instill in my students and into the young coaches that are coming behind me, the young administrators, explaining to them that every day somebody is watching you. Every day somebody is watching. You might not think about it. You know, I can divert, if I will, to our wonderful Kiki Palmer situation. Well, she is a mom. Every day somebody is watching you. And every day I'm an administrator. So while I would like to go and do all these things, you just can't. And that's part of being a good leader. Understanding that there are some things, some roads you can't go down. Some things you can't do. And the other thing is knowing which battles to fight. The one thing about knowing which battles to fight, it doesn't mean that you don't have to fight them, just may not mean not right now. And I think that's what our young people have to realize. Everything is not meant for you to take up that mantle immediately. Sometimes you need to sit back. You need to gain some more insight on that situation. Prepare yourself for battle with the knowledge that you learn. And then when you get to that next step, you're ready. You're ready. You're not only fighting with this much information, you're fighting with all the information so that you can give an informed response. We can all just give a response off the top of our head, but you want to make it informed. You want to give an informed response. We just don't want to say anything. So for me, leadership development starts with growth, and it also has to do with your personal growth.
You're dropping gems. I should have my pen up here so I can take notes too. And you touched a little bit on this, talking about being prepared. What do you think are some of the essential skills and competencies that go into leadership and then being that consummate good leader?
I think the first thing that I pride myself on is being fair. If you would ask anybody about what is Dr. Fisher's one quality, they're going to tell you that she's fair. I am fair in good, and I am fair in bad. And sometimes I tell them, in being fair, sometimes the answer is no. I know it's the unpopular answer, but it could be no. It could be not right now. It could be you need to do a little bit more research on that. Come back to me with a better plan. Develop this a little bit more. But I'm a fair person. I think that if you want to be a good leader, you have to be fair. You have to treat everybody, like I said, you got to treat everybody the same. You got to treat everybody with the same respect. You can't treat everybody the same. We already know that, right? We can't treat everybody the same. But if you treat everybody with the same respect, and I go about handling these situations the same way, then they see that I'm fair, and they'll come back to me again and know that I'm not doing it out of spite or judgment.
Essential skills. So I look at skills and I say that anybody can be taught to do anything. It may take, some skills may take longer than others, but when you think about like day-to-day tasks, anybody can be taught to do anything. I think an essential skill that people need to have is emotional intelligence. It's critical. It will make or break you. Because anything in that department that you need to learn, you can be shown how to do that. What people can't show you how to do is how to act professionally, how to have that decorum in situations, how to present yourself as a leader. That can't be taught. I think another skill that is important is agility. Sometimes we are so rigid in our thinking professionally, that rigidity takes us out of opportunities. That if we had just been a little bit flexible, a little bit agile, we would have gotten to where we wanted to go at that time. But now we got to take another long path and a detour to get to where we want to go. So I think agility is essential. And then I say the last thing is the ability to coach and be coached, to take feedback. And that goes back to that emotional intelligence. People who have a low level of emotional intelligence, feedback is very hard for them. It's very hard for them to accept. And it's not saying that it's not hard for people feedback isn't hard, because it's hard for me. But you have to have that understanding and that self-awareness to be able to understand that you don't know everything that you don't know. And that there's always an opportunity to get better. And it's about how you respond to situations that really determine your character, not only as a person, but professionally.
I agree with that, and I think that goes right into one of the other ones I wrote down, which was transparency.
Yes.
And that feeds right into transparency. If I know that I'm going to go and she's going to, I've seen how she handled this situation before. I can almost kind of know what's going to happen. I don't know exact, but I know that she's going to do this, and then she's going to deal with it in a way that's professional. So that's transparency, and they know your character. That's important. So I think that the transparency is big as well. The other one I wrote down was empathy.
Absolutely.
Empathy. I think that it's okay to empathize with people. I didn't say that you had to, you empathize with them, but you don't have to just, go delve all into it, but feeling what people feel, that they can come to you and they can talk to you.
Yep.
And they're not going to be judged. I think that's the biggest thing, that you're not going to be judged. On this campus 30 something years ago, I met my very best friend, and we talk every day, and we laugh at people when they say they fight. We have never had an argument because we vowed to never judge each other. Sometimes you just need to listen. You just need to listen. And then the other thing we vowed is that we're going to always tell each other the truth.
Yes.
Whether it hurts, whether you agree with me or not. And that's the way you build that 30-year friendship. That's a relationship. And that all of our kids want. How do you do that? Easy. Easy.
I think the last one that I would add to what Dr. Fisher said was vulnerability. Don't be afraid to, especially as you move up into leadership positions, don't be afraid to display vulnerability. And I say that especially to my women in the room. So many times we're taught that we have to act like men. I was told that, oh, you'll never make it as a leader because you're too nice. And I tried to be that hardcore, tell it, say it, do it. And I was miserable because that's not me. And what I said one day when I was driving to work and I was talking to myself, I know people be driving by me like, who is she talking to? Well, now we have phones in our cars and all that stuff. So I think I'm safe. But at the time I was like, you know what? I have to give this a shot and do it my way. If it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. And so I started leading my way, and I practice vulnerability with my team. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I tell them when I don't know something. And what it does is it endears trust. My team trusts me. And if I don't know something, they bust their butts to go and get the answer. If I can't do something, they bust their butts to do it, and vice versa. And that's what makes us so great together. I'm not sitting at the head of the table. I sit at the head of the table because they're my team. But I'm not sitting at the head of the table with my nose up in the air like I'm all knowing, all seeing, and you all just work for me. No, I don't have a problem with saying to them, this is good. Or, hey, you know what? I just did it this morning. I sent the email to my staff and I was like, hey, oh, I'm sorry, we have a program starting on Monday. I forgot about this. Can someone help me get this done before we get to Monday? Now, I'm sure there's times where they probably roll their eyes when they get those emails and be like, God, get it together, Dee. Come on, man. But it's all part of creating that trusting environment, because they know that they can also come to me and say, hey, you asked me to do this. I'm not sure that I really understand. And that's how people work to get better. If you don't have that vulnerability and that trust within your organization, then people are running around with a facade on, trying to make sure that they're living up to the standards that they feel like they need to, when all the while behind that, they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand what's going on. They're scared to ask questions. And so therefore, none of the work is getting done to the level that it could be, if at all. And you're mired in problems. So you really have to have the commitment to vulnerable leadership and creating a trust environment. Trust is a cornerstone of everything. Not just in personal relationships, but in professional relationships too. People have to trust you to be willing to put themselves out for you. If you have that, then you will have not only a high performing team, but you will most likely have a positive environment where people want to come to work every day and work for you. Don't listen to what these other people say out here about you need to do this, you need to be hard. And there's nothing wrong with being direct. You don't have to be nasty with it. There's nothing wrong with having tough conversations. Because my team knows that I care about them, I actually think it's easier for me to have a hard conversation with them. I do it all the time. It's not unicorns and glitter in my department. Sometimes I have to grab people by their collar and say, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? But we have that trust. And usually when I ask those questions, we get to the heart of the matter. I don't really understand this, or I got this stuff going on at home that I'm trying to balance everything, and I'm not balancing well right now. I need some help. So that is another thing. And I think that it starts not just with you being in a leadership position, but it starts as you being an individual contributor. Don't be afraid to say what you don't know. Ask the questions, because skills can be taught. All of the things that me and Dr. Fisher are talking about are those things that you have to work on yourself. And these are the invisible things that will make you successful.
The key word here is authentic.
Yes.
Being your authentic self. I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they said, well, going back to your point, I can't be feminine at work. And I was like, I took that personally. I was like, why can't you? Well, I need to be able to get things done, and I need them to pop like this. I'm like, okay, well, we can do that too. I don't understand. Totally different styles of leadership, but they all can work. So, just being authentic, and people can tell when you're really not being yourself.
Yeah.
And you went right into, what my next question was going to be about different styles of leadership between men and women. All the words that you all used are usually those that are used by women. But there are some women that are very, hard, for lack of a better term.
It was the women who told me that. It wasn't the men who
Yeah.
said that to me and said you have to act different or be different.
Yeah, you
It
have
was
to
the women
dress a
who told
certain
me you
way.
will never make it.
You need to wear suits, wear your pantsuits, and don't be too girly and that sort of thing. Everybody who knows me knows I'm known for what? My 4 or 5 inch heels. That's just me. That's part of me. And if I don't have them on, people are like, are you sick? Or you're not feeling well? What's going on? But I don't feel like I need to change that part of me to be able to be successful. I've been a product of several of Dee Dee's leadership institutes. And that's one of the things that they talk about, being authentic, first of all, to yourself, so you can lead others so they can be authentic as well. So have you had, you've given your experience coming from the coach's side. Have you had to deal with that as well?
Oh, yes. I I wrote an article years back, and it was entitled "The Different Number of ADs and Presidents That I Had Been Through," and I think this was probably in 2012 or so. But I went back and I recounted again. So as a collegiate administrator here at this institution, I am now on my 13th athletic director and going into my 9th president. And they asked, the term that everybody asks me is, how did you survive? And I said, that's not the right terminology.
Mm-hmm.
How am I prepared to deal with the next person? All of that has prepared me to deal with the next administration.
Yep.
And the way I'm prepared is by continuing to do my job. That's what they're looking at. If I continue to do what I'm hired to do, and then of course, sometimes you do a little bit more depending on the situation, but to do your job. You're afraid when new people come. Yes, changes, and it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Reorganizations, they happen all the time. But if you're doing what you're supposed to do in that job and it's reorged out, that's not negative. That just means it was reorged out. That's not the place for you. You're gonna find somewhere else, you'll go. Texas Southern has just always happened to be that place for me. I've had opportunities to go other places. I was recruited by Grambling years ago to go be their volleyball coach. I was recruited by then HBU, which is now AC. Many places have recruited me, but every time that recruitment opportunity came, another opportunity was here and was better. And I chose to stay. And then it became a life for me. Then I wanted to better my university because this is my life. When we hear all the negative publicity, I want to be able to say, oh no, that's what you read. But that is definitely not the case. If I don't say something about my institution, who will? If I don't tell you that's wrong, the news has a job to report news for ratings. But we live this life every day here at Texas Southern University and at your various institutions and at your institution. So you have to be the one to combat that. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy to be the one person in the room that's saying the positive thing when everybody else is saying something negative. Everybody else looked at you all on your 8th, you're on about to get a new president. And we said, okay, well, perhaps that just wasn't a fit. And now we're looking forward to the next person we want to come in. We want them to embrace our culture and move us forward. That's how you have to look at it. And how am I going to be a part of that next movement? That's what it's all about.
That goes back to also the agility, and being grounded in your principles and your leadership principles. I had 6 ADs in 7 years, so I get it.
She wins.
Yes.
So, but again, it's about understanding and taking something that Dr. Fisher said earlier and spinning it a different way. It's about running your own race and understanding what your job is at that time and sticking true to that. What is your mission, vision, values, and purpose?
Great.
So are there different strategies and priorities that you think those of us who constantly strive to be better leaders, what are the priorities that we should be looking at just to continue to get better?
So I look at learning and development and say that a lot of, and I'm going to say this, and this is going to run counter to what I do every day, but a lot of what is taught in this space has people running on a hamster wheel together. I challenge all of you, when you're thinking about your learning and development, to step outside of the athletic realm to get it. Go to the conferences and conventions that those who work in the corporate realm go to. Seek some learning and some knowledge outside of your profession. Because what is in our profession is very small and it's limiting. There's not enough leadership development departments to serve everybody. And unfortunately, a lot of what we all teach is relatively the same with some tweaks. Now, I say my stuff is the best, but that's neither here nor there.
But you're
But-
supposed to.
I tell my staff, I have a budget line where I provide my staff with money every year for professional development. And I challenge them every year to step outside of the conferences and conventions that we go to. Those are not for us. We're usually there as a contributor to it. Go to something else that is going to help you professionally. If you are not a strong speaker, find a conference or a program that will help you with public speaking. If you work in a profession where you're having contact all day or a lot of contact with student athletes or different folks, consider becoming a coach. Consider becoming an executive coach and look into the education that will bring to you. Number one, it will help you in your job. Number two, you can get a side hustle going on real quick and make some really good money. So consider looking at professional development opportunities outside of athletics, outside of college athletics, and use those opportunities that are within college athletics for networking. Go to the NACDAs, but look at it for networking. Because the reality is that is one of the biggest purposes for that. Forget your learning. Challenge yourself to look outside of the space that you work in to get that professional development.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I stepped out of athletics, but it was still for colleges. So I attended the HBCU Executive Leadership Institute. That was housed at, well, still is, I think they're in their third year now, third cohort, at Clark Atlanta University. And it is specifically to teach you about upper management and leadership at HBCUs, preparing you for vice presidents and presidents' roles and things like that. And I wanted to be in that room because it teaches you how presidents think. All of their presenters, which they call legacy leaders, are either sitting or former presidents. That's a different mindset and a different lens to look at what we're doing from an athletic standpoint. There was only two presidents in this year-long institute that actually talked about athletics. So it was different for me. I had to convince them to let me in because they were like, well, you work in athletics. I said, well, think of athletics like student affairs, because we actually touch everything on a college campus. We do recruiting. We look at retention. We have graduation rates, academics, all of that. So it's all the different elements of a university in this little small confined space.
Yes.
So looking at it from that standpoint, light bulb went off for them. But it was one of the best institutes that I had participated in because it was totally different. We talked about board governance. We don't really talk about that in athletics because we don't deal with the board a lot unless you're in the AD chair. But having those conversations and really being intentional about getting better from that standpoint, I think has helped me to be better in my job in athletics.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would say that one of the strategies and things that you need to do is get a mentor.
Yes.
A lot of people don't have mentors, and I know you may have. You say I have mentors when I was growing up, but get a mentor in the field. So that you can bounce those things off of them. I had a mentor. He has passed on, but every time it was a new job opportunity for me, that was the first call I made. And he never, ever did he tell me no, don't take the job. But he always presented it. in a way where I got the answer. I don't know if that's what you want to do. He would say, do you see yourself doing that in 5 years, in 10 years? You know, and then he would put it back on me so that I could develop. And I'm like, I don't know if I would see myself doing that in 10 years. And he said, if you can't see yourself, if you're going to leave something that's permanent for longevity and, you know, you have a family, he said, you put all those things in perspective. If you can't see yourself doing that job, then you might not want to leave that. That's not the one for you. And he always made sure that it was my decision. So that I didn't have to, I wouldn't say you told me to leave that job or you told me that. But have a good mentor. I had an athletic and an education mentor. Both of them. Because on the education side, I needed someone that understood the dynamics of that as well. And the education mentor would maneuver my way through earning the, as Doc said earlier, about the PhDs and the EDDs and, you know, even being a sports person, you know, asking her, well, what's the difference? If this person has a PhD and this person has an EDD, is it any less of a doctor? And no, it's not. It just depends on the area that you're in. So a long time ago, I decided I did want to go back to school after some pushing. After some pushing, I had a good mentor that told me go back to school. And when I did do that, it became the best decision of my life because not only now do I get to work on the academic side, I teach the student athletes in the classroom, and then I get to see them administratively perform. So don't tell me you can't read the playbook because you just did it in class. Don't tell me you can't understand because you can't. You just wrote a whole paper on the dichotomy of this, so I know you can understand. It's about your application. So those are the things. Get you good mentors. Good mentors. And I say that to everybody, not just the young people. If you don't have one, get you a good mentor. And do you know that there are people that you can reach out to? They are looking to mentor people. You don't have to have ever met that person. You can go read, this looks like the track that I want to follow. And sometimes you'll be like, it'll be the best decision, the best network opportunity. Absolutely. You know, and then that can catapult you in different directions. Yep. And that's what you want.
But you know, that helps you too, because when you're talking to them and helping them move through their situation, is not always a problem or issue. It just could be a situation that they need to talk through. It's helping you think in new ways as well. I have 3 coaches right now that I'm mentoring. It just started as one of them was recommended. The other 2, we just started conversations and it kind of evolved into this mentorship. But it helps me think outside the box. I've never been a coach full-time. I did have 2 stints as an interim coach and we won volleyball. But I was never hired to be a coach. So talking to them about, you know, their day-to-day and how they can get better from that perspective is helping me think from an administrative standpoint, how can I help other coaches that are not technically my mentees, but I still want to help you develop and be better. And then some of the stuff, you know, I can internalize and, you know, take myself and be like, oh, okay, I just told you to do that. I should do that myself. You know, so you know, self-mentoring there, but I think that's always a great opportunity. And it doesn't have to be somebody that's older than you.
No.
You know, you can have a mentor that's younger than you or peer mentor. All of those are, you know, just as important and just as impactful.
And get you some advocates and amplifiers. Get you some people who will say your name and speak to your accomplishments in those rooms that you're not in.
Not there. That's right.
Get those people who will advocate for you in situations where you need that little extra push. And when you think about mentors, as Dr. Fisher illustrated, you can have more than one. Make sure that you do. Also consider getting an aspirational mentor. What is that position that you want to have? Where is that ultimate landing spot for you? If it is on the educational side and you say, you know what, one day I would love to be a university president. Get you one. Get you one as a mentor. Get that aspirational mentor. But make sure that you're also developing relationships with people who will serve as advocates and amplifiers for you. When they're in rooms and someone is speaking about, if it's on the job and they're speaking about a project and that person knows that this is right in Dr. Fisher's wheelhouse, then it's up to me as her advocate and her amplifier to, at that table, to say, well, you know what? The perfect person for this project is Dr. Fisher. We don't even need to go any further. We don't need to go any further. Get those people for you. Sometimes we set up mentoring and we go about it the wrong way. It's not about quantity when you're out here networking. It's about quality. It's not about how many people you know. It's how many people do you know who are going to stand up for you? Because you can't be everywhere. And a lot of times in this profession and all professions, people always say athletics is small. Every profession out here is small because it's all about people talking about and advocating and amplifying for other people. It happens everywhere, not just in athletics. It's about people being at the table and saying, hey, I got this, or picking up the phone. Hey, Paula, I got this position opening up for so-and-so and such and such. You know anybody? Yep. Dee Dee. She did this. She currently works here. She's doing this. She'd be the perfect person for you. I'll get her resume. So make sure that you're emphasizing quality over quantity, and make sure that you're developing relationships with people, and that it's reciprocal, that you're also going to be their advocate and their amplifier as well.
So tell us that one tidbit. I am new to the business. I'm trying to navigate this. I'm trying to figure out how to get a mentor, what I should look for, the qualities of a mentor, and then developing my path through this. And on the flip side of that, as a seasoned, or as we said earlier, as an OG in the business, same thing. How do we develop those relationships? Because a lot of times I think people have a tendency to say, well, I've been doing this, you've been here 30-some years. I don't really need a mentor. I got this. And maybe that's true. Maybe, you're in your spot and you don't want to evolve at all.
I hope not. I hope that's not the case.
Right. But there are some people that are like,
learners.
I'm good. I got this. I don't need anything else. I am a major proponent, as both of you know, of professional development. And I encourage my staff, colleagues, find something that excites you and go.
Mm-hmm.
There have been people who have told me, no, I won't do that. I'm good. I said, okay. So I'm move on to the next one.
And that's true, but I do think that you even the seasoned OG can learn something from a new person that comes into the room.
Absolutely.
Something small, young, old, indifferent, it doesn't matter. You can always learn. The reason that we bring new people into the fold is for them to share their ideas, their things, so that we can better wherever we are.
Mm-hmm.
So you can learn something from everybody. Like you say, don't have that closed mind. Don't have that closed mind. But I also like the fact that you talked about, what's that one thing that excites you?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's about seeing my young people excel. When I look back and see all of the volleyball players that are doctors, lawyers, teachers, coaches, counselors, administrators, that's my joy, because then I know that I was able to touch their life.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they come back and they say, hey, you remember you said this? I still remember that one nugget that you said. That's what I want my legacy to be.
Mm-hmm.
The people, the lives that I've touched, the students, the coaches, in coaching, we have a family. At Texas Southern, we say we have a family, but sometimes people leave the family.
That's right.
and they go take other jobs, and it's okay, because when they come back to the university, they still part of our family, you know, and we remember when they were here, but then they'll come back and they'll say, remember we had an athletic department retreat and you told me this, you know, that stuck with me. So then for me, that's confirmation. That one thing that they took away meant that they learned something that was important that I shared during that retreat. So then I feel as though, like I said, confirmation, I've done my job. That knowledge is going to continue to move on.
I think I would say that one of the things that I share with people from all different age groups, all walks of life, is that your career is a marathon, not a sprint. And I share that a lot, especially with our younger leaders, because they seem to have this mindset of, I'll take these 2 steps and then I'll get here. And if it doesn't happen, then it's just this catastrophic failure. When the reality of it is that, I'm just gonna bring religion into it. All of our steps are ordered. We just don't know what they are, right? So the twists and turns and details are ordered, or detours are ordered for us, so that we can experience the things that we need to experience and hopefully learn and grow from them, so that we can continue to move on in our lives in a better manner. The other thing that I would say, and that's building off of Dr. Fisher's, what she just said, and is she my sister, because we think alike, is find your joy. I tell people all the time that if you can marry what it is that you love doing with making a living, then a job stops being a job and it becomes a joy. I was watching, I think it was The View a couple of months ago, and they were talking about a study that was done, and the study disparaged the study disparaged people from saying find those things, do those things that make you happy, because they said that doing those things, the study showed that people made less money. If money is important to you, and it's important to all of us, right? We got to live, we got to eat, we got to have a roof over our head. I'm not saying that. But if that's the driving factor for you, then there is undoubtedly going to be a detour. If that money is your joy, okay, claim it, own it, and do what you need to do. But I wholeheartedly disagree with that study, because all I see out of that is a bunch of miserable people with money in their pocket.
Not enjoying life.
Not enjoying life, not enjoying the impact of what it is that they do every day. Not going to work with that zest and that zeal. Those are the people that's sitting in their cars every day, talking themselves into going into the building, right?
Right.
Because they're not happy. And why they are there is usually because of the money. Find what gives you joy, whatever that is, and then figure out a way to make a living out of it.
That's right.
If counseling is what gives you joy, we all know that counselors and social workers, you know, they have fulfilling careers. They don't necessarily make as much money, but again, also look at those different paths in professional development that can help supplement or elevate that. Maybe you're a counselor by day, but you have this side business where you're an executive coach. There's different things that can be done that can still be in your circle and realm of joy. Don't let the hype of all the other things or trappings that other people have take you off your square and what it is that you want to do. Find what gives you joy, because then every day you get up, the work is effortless. And that doesn't mean that every day is a great day. That doesn't mean that you don't go to work and people get on your last nerve. It doesn't mean that things always go your way. It doesn't mean that bad things don't sometimes happen. But what it does mean for me is there's not a day that I wake up where I'm sitting on the side of the bed saying, oh, I hate my job. There's not a day that goes by where I'm sitting in the car like, oh, I don't want to go in here. Unless I'm not feeling well. I don't like to do, oh, I just don't want to do it. No. I'm not going to live that way. So find your joy.
And live it.
And live it. Because life is too short to be chasing after something that doesn't bring you joy. If it doesn't bring you joy or bring you peace of mind or happiness, life is too short. You'll die with that money in your pocket, miserable.
And someone else will
And
speak.
not take it with you. And that, another big trending topic right now, which is an important one, is mental health.
Yes.
So what you all are talking about right now is basically self-care,
Yes.
another trending word. Making sure that we are mindful of the things that we're doing, because especially we're working with student athletes, they feed off of us a lot of times. I call my student athletes my headaches and my heartbeats. My original headache and heartbeat is back there now. But I call my student athletes my headaches and my heartbeats, because sometimes, you just hug them up and, oh, that was great. Other times it's like, what are you doing? But that lets them know that I'm really invested in them. And I want to see them do well. I want to see them make good decisions and prepare them for life after sport. But to be able to do that, we have to take care of ourselves and making sure that we're pouring into ourselves. They say you can't pour from an empty cup. So we've got to pour into ourselves first. And I'm speaking this, but I'm talking to myself too, because we have to remind ourselves to do these things. Sometimes we have to unplug.
Yes.
And that's part of being a good leader as well, knowing when it's time for you to step back and unplug. Take care of yourself so when you step back out, you're ready to go. You're not struggling to get out of the car or struggling to get out of the bed. And that happens sometimes because we all just have, bad days or, sometimes it's a bad week or a bad month. But it's not solely based on because I don't like my job. And being in a position that you love can help you come out of that funk and get back to our lovely selves.
But think about the disservice that you do to other people when you are in a space that does not bring you joy.
Right. Because you bring it with you.
You bring it with you. You can't hide that. I don't care how many zeros you have on your paycheck. You can't hide that.
You bring it with you.
There's people who talk about you should have a separation between work and your personal life. Show me where it is, because it's not there. There's always a crossover. That's why you should be selfish in trying to find those things that give you joy, because it is all intertwined. It's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration. Because it's all intertwined. The self that you have at home, you are bringing to work, and vice versa. So think about the disservice that you're doing to colleagues, but more importantly, think about the disservice that you're doing to your family, to your partner, to your husband, wife. If you are not in a space of doing something that brings you joy. And then conversely, think about those times when you are in those spaces, where everything is in alignment for you on a personal and a professional level. Think about how you show up for not only yourself, but for other people. That's why that joy is so important, because that's where you get the maximum impact, not only for yourself, but for other people. You on cruise control when you find that joy and you're doing it every day.
Right.
And you are excelling. And people are sitting up and taking notice. Like, wow, because it's effortless, because it is something that is personal to you in a positive way. So that's why it's important. You feel better, you look better. All of those different things happen when you are in a space where you are doing what you love. That's why it's so important.
Work-life balance, happiness.
Doing that and taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Yes. We have a few more minutes. Are there any questions for the audience?
I have a question. So you guys were talking about the fact that the industry that we're in, sports, whether it's at the collegiate or professional level, it is male dominant. As stated before in the previous, that it was like a male dominant or old good boys club situation. How have you guys navigated that industry as a leader and still been authentically you? Because again, like being a woman, being a girly girl, not feeling like I need to wear a suit all the time, because there's times I might want to wear a dress and some kicks, you know, that's just how I roll, you know. But how has it been you navigating in this industry as a leader and still being authentically you?
Can I go first?
Most
Because this has been on my mind a lot. The biggest problem with women professionally in this male-dominated society, and I know this is controversial, but for me, what I see, the biggest problem with women in a male-dominated society is women. We look at it as a zero-sum game. If I am successful, I can't advocate for Paula or Dr. Fisher to be successful because they're going to come and replace me. What we have to be is disruptors in making sure that we're advocating for each other in those spaces instead of shrinking ourselves to fit in that space and not advocating for each other because we're not making room. We have to make room at the table for each other. We can't sit and whine and expect somebody to say, well, there's no room at the table for any of us. We make it that way because we aren't truly fighting for each other as women to be at the table. When I talk about advocates and amplifiers, if I'm in a space where I am the only woman in the room and I get the opportunity to talk about another woman, that is creating space. We have to get out of this mindset of being fearful of losing our position because we are advocating for another woman. That is our biggest problem, is that we get there and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, oh my goodness, I got to do everything I can to be there. And I'm the only, or I'm one of few. Instead of looking at it and saying, how do I kick the damn door in so that everybody can, all my sisters can come through the door. That's the biggest problem I see right now, is that our support of each other as women is performative. We go to these conferences, we have these sister circles and all this other stuff, and everybody's sitting around talking, and it's, we have to support each other. Yay, let's wave the flag. It's Women's Month. It's this, this, and this. But when it matters most, we're overlooking a woman for a position when we are in a position of authority to hire a man because we feel threatened by that other woman.
I'll pick up the phone and make that call.
Absolutely. We have to be secure in who we are and what we do. I am secure enough in who I am and what I do that I don't have a problem with bringing another woman into my space. My department is majority women. That is our biggest problem, is that we have to step out of performative support and move into really, really, really supporting each other. Because that's what men do.
And that's leadership.
That's leadership. That's what men do.
That's
And look to
stepping
create spaces.
That's stepping up to make that decision. Sometimes we also won't make the decision.
No.
Right. We'll leave it to someone else. We'll dance around the table instead of making that decision for that fear that she just spoke about. But you got to be willing to stand up and make the decision. They're not going to always be right.
No.
But every decision you learn from. But the one thing we have to do is make it. I tell everybody, I will make an executive decision in a minute.
Yes.
It may not be right, but I'm going to make it because I don't have a fear of making a decision. Because either it's going to be the right decision, or I'm going to learn from it, learn not to make that one again and go on a different route. but you gotta be willing to make the tough decisions.
And this is where self-awareness comes in. Because if you are insecure, examine why. Examine why. Don't hide behind it. Don't let that be the determining factor that makes you close the door to where other women can't come behind you or walk alongside of you. Examine why you are insecure. This is where, when we go back to talking about why we're all here at the table, learning and development and professional development is important, because you need to be pouring into yourself so that you're staying at the top of your game, not trying to use your position to keep others back because you're insecure about being moved around. If somebody's going to come in and move me around, they got to fight on their hands. I'm not giving up nothing without fighting. I'm secure enough in what I do and how I go about developing myself and pouring into myself, just like I do hundreds of other people every day, that if there's going to be somebody that's going to come in, I'm going to lose a hard-fought, fair fight. And if I lose, I'm also secure enough in myself to know that I have enough skills and abilities and connections and people out there championing me,
So be okay.
that it will be okay and I will move on to my next adventure. And eventually I'll wake up one day and say it was meant for me to lose this battle because it was something better ahead for me. We have to stop looking at this as a zero-sum game. We are creating a space where there's only one chair at the table for us. It's not the men that's doing that. We are doing that because we aren't challenging and we aren't advocating and we aren't amplifying other women. We aren't showing that we have other colleagues, other female colleagues that are just as smart, just as accomplished, just as qualified to sit at that table. It's got to come from us.
And especially for us as Black women.
Absolutely.
You know, people always talk about breaking the glass ceiling. For us, I refer to it as crushing concrete because it's that much harder for us
Yes.
as Black women. So if we don't, you know, what Dee Dee does, and I have witnessed her because I've gone through a lot of her professional development, it's phenomenal. But a lot of people don't really take advantage of it like they should. And then like she talked about, own that space once you leave the room. You've got to have people there that's going to talk for you. My biggest supporter right now, my biggest mentor is my former AD, Eugene Marsh, and I talk about him all the time, and he always says, you don't have to put my name out there. But he's an advocate, and yes, he's a man, but he's an advocate for us as Black women, and he has been for a long time. He worked with Stan in putting MOA together.
Mm-hmm.
But when we get in the room together as Black women, we start talking to each other about, well, let me tell you what you can do to work on yourself. I appreciate that. A lot don't. But to me, that's being my sister. Not just my sister, that's being my sister. Because she's telling me what I need to work on and what I need to do to get better. And then, like she said, once I leave the room, she's going to advocate for me.
It's about being intentional.
It's
I
really
get calls
important.
every single day from search firms, from directors of athletics, conference commissioners, professional sports teams. Dee Dee, I have this position open. Who do you have? I have this opening. Do you have? I have this. And I make sure that I am intentional in pushing forward those, who yes, are qualified and in the best place for the opportunity. But if there's an opportunity for me to make sure that I'm pushing forward more of us, those Black and brown skinned people who wouldn't get this opportunity, then that's what I do. But that's what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be, we have to stop having it be performative. We can't just put a t-shirt on in April and say, oh, we all about Title IX. And then the other 11 months of the year, we sitting and it's like, oh, I don't know. Or you're not even saying it out loud, but inside you saying, well, I don't know. So-and-so then that, then that's gonna be problems for me. No, it's not.
To make it better for all of us.
Absolutely. Got a question over here.
I'm not sure if I missed this. So I know that like when you're talking about making space and making room, but there's still a very small percentage of women that are at the table that think like that, right? They still have a very, and it could be stuff that's embedded in us, like we've grown up very competitive, and it's like, once we get there, it's like, well, if I had to work here to get there, you have to do the same. So that kind of mentality. So because there is still a small percentage of women in that space that think like that, how do you bypass that? Because I know that even on my journey of over 12 years of, interview after interview of calling this person, making a connection, building a relationship, I mean, you get to the point where it is very mentally and physically draining. And so you start to question, okay, God, like, I know this is the space I'm supposed to be in, but how come I'm not there yet? Or how come I don't feel like I'm getting any closer? Why do I feel like I'm going backwards? So how do we get past that? Like, okay, we know we need to still reach out to women and men and make these relationships with people, but what do you do when you're in that space where you're stuck and it's like, you build these relationships, so you think, or you build these connections. I mean, how do you still be able to like maneuver around it and get to where you're trying to get to without, because I mean, I think a lot of women, they may be right there on the verge of getting there, but because they're so mentally and physically drained, that it's like, you miss the mark because you're like, you know what, I'll just go do something totally different.
Don't give.
That's number one.
First thing, don't give up. Because if you have the wherewithal to say that I am right there, then that means you're right there is going to become right now. You're at the door. It's a reason, and you might need to learn this other skill. Like you say, it might not be that straight line. You went this way, so they can prepare you. You might even bypass that one and go to the next level. Everything that you're learning and everything that you're going, but don't give up. It's a means to an end. It's a means to an end.
I would say to you a couple of things. Number one, be very strategic with the connections that you make. Very strategic. It's not just a quality over quantity, it's a strategy to it. So be very strategic. What is that end goal for you? Whatever that end goal is for you, research the people who are at that end goal, that position that you want, and be really strategic about engaging not only with those people, but even looking a step ahead of them, because somebody had to make the decision for them to be there. Employ strategy. If it's that important to you, employ strategy to it. The other thing that I would say to you is be what you want to see. Going back to the first part of your question. As women, we only see a small group. We can't of them there. We can't worry about why that's that. We have to worry about taking it upon ourselves and being intentional in bringing people up along with us and bringing other women up along with us. In particular, bringing other Black women up along with us. Be what you want to see. Step out. Don't worry about what they're doing over here. You step out. And as you're in those rooms, because we're all in rooms, different levels, but we're all in rooms. So in the rooms that you're in where you have influence, you step out and be that influencer for those young leaders, those young female leaders that are coming behind you. The last thing that I would say to you is that in employing that strategy about connecting with and networking with those people who are in the positions and above you, having a male mentor is very helpful as well. Because right now that's the dominant majority. Get those connections and get that mindset and get those gems from them, because they're in those spaces. And because they're in those spaces and they're usually the majority in those spaces, make sure that those advocates and amplifiers for you are also male. as well as female.
Okay,
You're welcome.
take our last question.
I have a question for leadership. I want to know, since you guys are in your roles now, have you ever felt like you were a leader before you were in your role? And how did you handle that leadership? I would say kind of, I don't know how to put it, but how did you handle that with not being in that role, but still having those responsibilities to kind of hold to?
I think that kind of happens all the time when people leave jobs, but the jobs that they left still has to be done. So you will do that job while we're hiring, but you take on those responsibilities, or they may not take them on, they're given to you. But the one thing I say when you do, you're voluntold, good job, good statement.
Yep.
You wanna make sure that you hone in, you learn everything about that job, because who knows, it may be you in that space that's next. Because you didn't fight it. I know sometimes you say we wanna fight doing something, but when someone leaves and you can't readily hire somebody, the job has to be done. If that's a skill that you wanna learn, do it to the best of your ability so you can add that to your repertoire. When you go somewhere else, you're building up your resume. Now I not only know how to do marketing and development, but now I got ticket operations under my belt. Keep building. So now when you go for that AD position, you have marketing, development, ticket building, and your or whatever it is your job is. You got all of them. So I say it's not always easy. I'm sorry.
No.
It's just not always easy, but don't always look at it as a negative.
No, and Dr. Fisher's right. I worked in a small athletic department at Milwaukee for 15 years. I did every job but tickets and paying the bills in the business office. Everything else I had a hand, and coaching, because I wasn't acting. Everything else I had a part in. But leadership is a transferable skill. So your question was, have you ever, felt like you were a leader without being in a position? Sure. All throughout your life, you have been leading. It is the culmination of those skills and those experiences that you have had that will get you to that ultimate place that you want to be. I'm sure you probably were a leader as a kid. You probably had all the little neighborhood kids running behind you, and you like, charge, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna do this. When you are a student athlete, you're leading. There may be that team captain, but a team is built of leaders. Everybody has a role to play. Leadership is not just being at the front of the room. Sometimes what leadership looks like is being that person who is doing the right thing, emulating those best practices so that others can see how things get done. That leader may be taking on the directives of the person in the front of the room and emulating it so that everyone else can see. So there's all different forms of leadership, and it's all transferable. So there's things you've been doing throughout your entire life that have made you feel and that you are a leader. So that's why you're feeling that way, because you've been doing this all your life. You've been leading all your life. So what you should be doing is taking those different experiences and stringing them in to your personal narrative. So as you are applying for jobs, you can talk about the different leadership experiences that you've had and show that progressive growth that you've had throughout your life on a personal and professional level that has made you the perfect candidate for that next role and ultimately that goal job that you want.
You might think it's small. You might think that semester that you did that job
Right.
didn't mean anything, but that may be what that person in your next role is looking for.
Exactly.
You spoke earlier to vulnerability as a leader,
Mhm.
and I personally struggle with being vulnerable in an industry like mine. It's very uncomfortable for me to be vulnerable because I know and I've watched with my own eyes how people can use that against you. How can I be true to myself and still be vulnerable with the people who are under me? but I don't want to,
It's
in all honesty.
it's a risk.
It's kind of, yeah.
It's not, I'm not saying that it's perfect, that it's a perfect science to it. You have to be okay with it. I had to get to a point where I said I cannot be for one more day something that I am not. At my core, I am a person who is smart. I work very hard at what I do, but I'm also very self-aware to know that I don't know everything. And I don't have a problem with saying that. So you have to be the one that's comfortable with that. Because the reality of it is, people see through us anyways. They know what we know and they know what we don't know. So why not be comfortable with yourself to be able to say, you know what? And it doesn't, and it's all about, I also think the comfort can be developed in how you express that. You don't have to express it like I express it, where I sometimes I just say to my team, like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Figure it out. Tell me, can you do it? Because I don't know what it is. You could maybe say it another way that makes you feel comfortable. You know, I'm not that well versed in this subject. I haven't had the opportunity to observe this procedure or take part in this activity. I'd love to have the opportunity to learn about this or to observe this. I think it would be very beneficial for me as both on a professional level as an individual contributor, or if you're already leading people. I think this would be very, very helpful for me to know in my job as XYZ leading this team. Maybe that would feel more comfortable for you. So it gives you the opportunity to say it and put it out there, but also put it out there in a way that doesn't leave you feeling exposed. Because that's what's making you uncomfortable. You're feeling uncomfortable because you're feeling as though if I say I don't know, then I'm exposed and everybody's going to be looking and saying, oh, wait, she don't know it. So maybe you just put it in terms that will make it comfortable for you, but then will also give you the opportunity to express that, which will then 9 times out of 10 give you the opportunity to take part in that thing that you don't necessarily know about, or get the answer to what it is that you don't know about. So maybe think about it that way.
Or introduce it to your team as a teachable moment.
Yep.
This is a way for them to learn and expand. So say, you know, I'm giving you an opportunity to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. So this is professional development for you.
And I think that as a good leader, you're already realizing where you struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the one thing
That's
about leadership.
self-awareness.
You understand
Mhm.
that this is where you need to improve.
Mhm.
And it's okay to choose which spots to be vulnerable in. You don't have to be vulnerable all the time.
Mhm.
It's okay for you to choose which ones you want to be vulnerable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Versus there. I think a lot of times people try to live their life it's hard to live your life in a perfect world when you live in an imperfect world.
Mhm.
So sometimes you just have to step out on faith. If you fall, you just try to fall forward.
Yep.
Mhm.
And many people feel, like Denzel say, many people fail the plan in their success. And on the road to success starts with the first step. So sometimes you just have to be willing to step out on faith and just go for something that you want.
Mhm.
And then you learn on it. A lot of us learn on the job.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't given to us.
Yep.
We just learned how to navigate the water.
Yep.
You know, so there are a lot of sharks out there.
Oh, yes.
And they'll bite.
Yes.
So sometimes people, they get afraid. And the young generation, see, the microwave wasn't in our day. We didn't have a microwave.
Mhm.
So we just had to warm the bacon up or warm the bread up, or just they had to eat it cold.
Mhm.
And see, young people want their cake and they eat it too. And I think sometimes I work in a world where female dominated. But I ain't afraid. I ain't scared of y'all. So you just got to go out there and, deal with it.
Mhm.
I got a mom. I got sisters. So you got to treat people like you want to be treated in order to be accepted.
Absolutely.
And that's the nature of the beast. So, like Dr. Fisher said, the biggest caveat about life and doing, working, is just going out and doing the best that you possibly can every day. And if you do your very best, somebody gonna notice you.
Absolutely.
That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
And on that note, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We will end this panel. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.